Welcome to the Elementor Boulder Meetup. We meet the first Tuesday of every month at noon Mountain Time. We're going to try to hit 1.5 hours, but we might go more like 1 3/4 or even 2 because of how much we're covering, and we will be wanting to let people ask questions. So we weren't sure the timing with how many questions we have, so we may go to 2 o'clock today. Please mute your mic if you're not speaking. If you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in the Elementor bar. There's a raise hand feature, and Dave or Ron will let us know if you have your hand raised. In the Zoom, I mean.
Under reactions, there's
yes, under reactions in the Zoom. And we will try to get to you. You can also put questions in the chat. And we have this talk divided into sections, so we might be helpful for us to take questions after each section, but we'll just play it by ear and see how it goes. We are recording the session, so you can anonymize yourself as much as you'd like with that in mind. So I am Angela Bowman. I am in Boulder, Colorado. Bethany and I have been working together in teaching for a long time. Since we met in 2008. We've been teaching since 2009 and facilitating or organizing meetups for a number of years. And I'm so happy to have Bethany helping me. She's the official co-organizer of this group, but then Ron Broom and Dave Warfel are also a co-organizers and assistants for this. They're not the official ones, so but we should go ahead and put their faces on their headshots on.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of work for us, and
yeah,
so thanks, guys. By the way, Sharon mentioned that the raise hand is actually in the participant window for them. So
okay, great. Thank you.
To let people know in case they didn't see that.
And oh, sorry, I keep somehow touching things. So Bethany Siegler is also in Boulder. Yeah, so that's why it's the Elementor Boulder Meetup. So if you missed the first part, please put in the chat where you're from, say hi, what you have on your feet, and also if this is your first time. We want to particularly note any first timers today because we did have a lot of new RSVPs. And I get asked that question. So if this is your first time, just let me know. Just say, yes, my first time in the chat.
And I have shoes on for the first time in weeks, other than when I go grocery shopping. So that led to the question today of what do you have on your feet?
Welcome, Isaac from the UK. I love the UK. So today our agenda is how to switch your site to Elementor. We're going to go through, we have a 10-step process, but for actually converting the pages. But in terms of what we're going to cover in the bigger picture is that you're going to need to make a copy of your existing site. If you have an existing site, hence the word switch your site, we're assuming you have an existing site that you need to switch. So we recommend doing that in a copy of your site because your site will break when you do this. And I have a process.
Assume it will break.
Oh, it will definitely break.
Yeah. No, I want them
assume.
Make the assumption that it definitely will break. And we're going to show you how to protect yourself.
It's going to look like hell for sure. Take an inventory of your existing sites so you kind of know what you need to replace. You're going to install a new theme, most likely, and you're going to eliminate plugins you don't need. You're going to install Elementor and Elementor Pro. You're going to set up all the site settings or theme styles and templates that you need for the new site and recreate all your page layouts. So that's going to be the process that we're going to talk about today. And then for April, we're going to talk about how to go live. Like it's one thing to build the site. It's then this whole other potential challenge to now take that site live, depending on what's happening on your existing site. And so we'll have lots of tips in April, which will be kind of part 2 of this talk. So be sure to RSVP and attend that talk as well. So we're going to get started with talking about staging environments, and I'm going to let Bethany take this part on.
Yeah, great. So some of you may have already been using a staging site or some form of development or a sandbox, whatever you want to refer to it. But we're assuming that some people on this call have not converted a site and put it into a staging site. So we just want to talk about what a staging site is and why you might need it. So if you have an existing site, regardless of whether you are converting or not, and you want to make updates, a staging site can be handy for that as well. It's a separate environment where you clone your site, you make a duplicate of your site. It's not synced to the live site. So if you change anything on the live site, it is not going to be changed in your staging area. Or if somebody adds a comment to your live site, somebody goes to your site and comments on a blog post or uses a form or anything like that, that won't be synced to the staging site. But the purpose of the staging site is so that you can check out, and the purpose in this scenario specifically is you can check out what will break. And again, we know things are going to break when you are converting your site over from a different page builder tool to WordPress. We're assuming that you're already on
I mean, to
WordPress.
Elementor.
I'm sorry, Elementor. We're assuming you are already on WordPress in this scenario, and you are just getting a clone of that site. But if you are on a different type of tool, you still would need a staging area to create your new site if you wanted your site to remain live until you pushed this new converted site over. Is there anything else on this slide that you wanted me to?
No, I would say that I felt like these 2 links that I put on here were super helpful, explanatory posts about what a staging site is and all the options you have for it. And we will talk about what we recommend as an option for creating that staging environment. So let me advance.
There are several different options. And the first one Angela is going to cover, which is web hosting staging environments.
So this would be, if you're hosted, a lot of hosting companies now provide what's called a staging environment. And there's WP Engine, Flywheel, Kinsta, Site District, SiteGround, even Bluehost's managed hosting and GoDaddy's, I think, managed hosting provides staging. And basically, they should have documentation that would say, oh, click this button to make a copy of your site. And so basically, as a click of a button, and then you get a fully duplicate copy of your live site. And it will have a unique URL. It might be something like staging.yoursitesname.com. It might be something like your site's name hyphen staging or hyphen dev dot the web host like flywheel.com or wpengine.com. But it's going to have its own URL. And in the web hosts world, they should be blocking that URL from being searched by search engines. So it's pretty safe area for you to kind of screw things up, basically. And it's the way that we recommend that you convert your site is to have a web host who provides this, because other ways that you might create a staging environment, which we will cover briefly, are going to require often a little bit more technical skill. And if you have those technical skills, that's fine. Some of you are very technical and you totally don't even need us to really be talking to you about this. But for those of you who aren't, this concept of being able to make a copy of your site is kind of new. And we just want to let you know, if you have a good web host, it shouldn't be hard. And so this is a real good opportunity for you if you're doing a big revamp of your site, is to reevaluate your hosting situation. And If you're on a more marginal web host or some cheap hosting plan that doesn't provide staging, I'd say if you're on a hosting plan that doesn't provide staging, you should move to a hosting plan that provides staging, because that would be one indicator that you actually have a good hosting plan. And if you don't have a staging environment with your host, it's a good indicator your host is kind of and again, it depends on how technical your configuration is. And for those of you who are very technical, this is kind of non-applicable because you know how to spin up new development environments and all of that. So this is for, you know, more of your designer, builder, end user who needs that assistance of the one-click staging. So that's what we recommend. Bethany, do you want to talk about local?
Sure. So when I first found local staging environments, it was fantastic for a series of reasons. What a local staging environment is a piece of software that you're loading to your computer, and you are able to build sites from your computer regardless of where you are. So if you're I know none of us are really traveling right now, but if you're on a plane or a train and there's no internet access at that point, you can keep working. So that's one of the big advantages, is that you can work from anywhere with the local staging environment, but also that it's really fast. It allows you, because of the fact that you're not on the internet, it allows you. Did you want to add something?
No, I just accidentally touched something and these slides are squirrely.
So it allows you to refresh pages very fast, and it makes your work time more efficient. And the other thing that's really nice about it is that it's private, so nobody can see what you're doing while you're building. So that's very handy, so that, you know, if there is, you know, it's a potential risk that if you are building a site, you're converting a site and it breaks, that if you were on the web staging environment, a client might go over and see that, right? This way they can't see anything until you're ready to show it to them, which is nice.
We would love to know if anyone's using staging right now. I mean, a local staging environment, and what you're using. Maybe put that in the chat.
And we are going to talk about what we suggest, but tell us which ones you guys are using. And we do see a couple of people who are either using ServerPress or WAMP or MAMP. WAMP is the Windows version, MAMP is the Mac version. WP Staging, local, and Deb from Kinsta. Yeah, lots of different people who are using different options. So the disadvantage is if if you're using a local site, a local staging environment, could be that the environment is different than where your live site lives. And what we mean by that is that there could be a different configuration. Maybe you're at a different PHP level than your live site. You can make adjustments. So at least on a lot of the different tools that I've used, you can either go up or down in the PHP version. Databases, Apache versus, how do you say that?
NGINX.
Okay.
I don't know.
So you just want to be aware of that and change your settings if you can to represent what the live environment looks like.
Or maybe like it could be that you're on a lower version of PHP because you have a really old site on your live site and you're kind of gun shy to update your PHP, but ultimately you need to know that whatever you're developing locally is going to match your configuration at your host. And probably the biggest thing with that is going to be the difference between like Apache and NGINX. But I mean, those technically shouldn't make a big difference when you go to migrate to live, but it's just nice to know, hey, I've kind of got things matchy here.
Yeah. And speaking of going live, there are some extra considerations you have to have before going live, you have to have a strategy for how you're going to take that site and move it to the live environment. In the case of local, it was created by, well, it was purchased
Local by Flywheel.
Local by Flywheel. It was purchased by Flywheel, which is a hosting company. So if you're already on their hosting company, it's very easy to pull a site from the live site to local and then push from local to live. But if you are using local and your hosting is anywhere else in the world, you have to do something else. And we're going to talk about what those things are
Next week.
But it's easy enough to do it once you know how to do it, and you want to take those into consideration when you're doing your timeline and budget parameters for your project. The harder thing is sharing the site while it's on local, and again, any local staging environment. Some of the tools do allow for ways to share, but know that that is a consideration. I usually build on local and then push it to a staging area where they can see it. And then I know is going to push over to the live site. If there's any real complications with that, that's an option as well.
Yeah, I think that's something someone else mentioned too. And I think that's a nice process. You pull it to local, do your development, then push it to a hosted staging environment, and then push it to live. And so I think that that's a very reasonable workflow if it all works for you with your hosting configuration and you can understand how to work those moving parts. I think that's a great process.
Yeah. And then Angela feels like it's harder to clone the site. So Angela, if you want to talk about that, I don't feel like it's that hard to clone the site from the live environment over to local, and I'll talk about mine, but what are your complications that you...
I guess I've been working with a lot of, kind of sites that have pretty very large databases. And even if I'm using the host's cloning tool, it honestly could take more than an hour to even just using their tool clone from their live site to a clone if it's a huge site. And so I think that if you're working with a simple brochure site, it's not a problem, but when you have really huge websites and then you're trying to make with one of these plugins a copy of that site, and then it's like 12 gigabytes and you're trying to bring that into a local environment, it's going to be challenging. And especially if the database is really large, like some tools just time out on even duplicating the database. You might need to get a paid version of any of the tools that you would use to copy your site. So I'd say probably the size and complexity, the size of the database and the overall size of the site can make that harder.
Yeah, and Scott's mentioning the tool that I tend to use for those bigger sites. Now, I don't typically have sites that are 12 gigabytes, but 1 or 2 gigabytes. The solution I use is all-in-one migration plugin, but I use an extension that's a paid extension to get those bigger sites. And it does say unlimited on there, but, oh, well, Angela mentioned it first. He wants to give you credit, Angela. Scott is mentioning it in there. But if you are using the all-in-one migration plugin, the free version has a limit. I think it's like 500.
It's 500.
Yeah. So if you need more, then you're just going to have to pay a one-time fee to pay for this extension. And then you can do what they say is unlimited. We haven't tested it with one of Angela's really big sites. So if anybody else has, just let us know in the chat. And then the last potential disadvantage is you need to set up backups. So what she's saying with regard to the disadvantage of backups is that if you are on the staging environment, the web staging environment, they are doing the backups for you. So it's just part of the package that you purchased. So whether it's the live site or the staging site, they're backing it up. But if it's on your local staging environment, you may have to put in a backup plugin so that you are getting a backup as you're going through the process.
Yeah, I kind of had one of my staging environments blow up. And I realized I wasn't running backups because I wasn't even thinking about it. So I would recommend set up updraft, whatever backup tool you normally use that will work on local, that will also work on your local environment, like set up those backups and make sure they're running as frequently as you might totally biff your site. I think what I did is I did something to optimize the database, and I trashed the database, just blew up, and that was it. That was all there was. So
I had a situation years ago, a couple of years ago, when local changed its whole interface. I had some sites on the old interface and it broke. And one of them was a site that I was close to launching. Luckily, I did have a backup of it, so I was able to get it. But know that, you know, technology is technology, so it's always better to have a backup.
yes.
So there was a question in the chat about why would you build in a local environment instead of building from your host's clone site?
If the client is, this is one scenario I can give you. I have clients who come to me and they're ready for me to build them a new site. And they are on a host provider that I would not recommend. And I did see Sharon and some other people having conversations about some that we wouldn't recommend. And they don't have a staging environment on their
current situation.
Then you could definitely take advantage of building on local. But even, like I said, even when it's in Flywheel, I typically don't send it to the staging area. I end up taking it to my local, because that way I don't have to worry about any internet connection difficulties. I think Dave's mentioning that right now. Yeah. So it's less of a concern now than when we're all working in our homes. But back in the day when I was traveling, you know, and I had my computer with me and I was sitting on a plane with no internet access, it was really handy. That's some of the issues. Also, as Dave is mentioning now, which we mentioned earlier, it is faster for performance.
Yeah, I think it's faster as well, especially when you're dealing with a lot of images. And if you get them, you set it up, and then you end up having to regenerate the image sizes, for example. I mean, that can be painfully slow, you know, over the server versus just doing it locally.
Nice. That's a great argument.
Yeah.
Love
it. And Kira's mentioning that, you know, if your home internet isn't as reliable as your former office, maybe that's a reason as well.
And then when you have it mostly done and you're ready for them to view it, then you get it up to the hosted staging, and then you're not, you know, you're not as in thick development mode. Yeah.
Let's wrap this one up.
So we just wanted to have a slide of local development tools that we use. If you use something else, I mean, these are tools, so there are other things that people have mentioned. The reason we list these tools is they're a bit more user friendly, where it's kind of a click of a button to set up a site to work with. There are also XAMPP, WAMP, MAMP, which do require a little bit more technical skill, where you do need to install a database and manually set up your files and stuff. But I used those for years before I started using ServerPress. So it's just a few more steps to get a site up, where these tools, if you do make a backup of your site, you will get a zip file of your site, and you can just literally drag them on top of the tool and it will create the whole site for you. So it's they're super cool, super easy to use, and you know, you can read more about them if you want to kind of explore local some more. And let's see, we just wanted to mention too, before moving off of staging, if you have a host, oh goodness, I'm going to sneeze.
While she's sneezing, I'll continue. So some other options for staging are to use a service provider and or a plugin that will allow you to do the same thing. In the case of WP Stagecoach, you're going over to their site and doing it there. I haven't actually used it. I don't know if they have a tool that pulls it onto your computer, but I'm assuming you're doing it on their site. Blog Vault is made by the guys over at Migrate Guru, and a lot of the hosting companies use Migrate Guru to migrate a site over. So that's a great option. They're really good, reliable tools as well. You bet.
I'd say of all these tools, WP Staging can have issues with the hot linking of the images. They don't duplicate the whole site in that they don't bring over all your images. They kind of do a resyncing back. So I've had people have lots of issues with if they have lots of archives of images, kind of that back and forth going back to live. There's just weird issues with that. Blog Vault, I think, is probably the most reliable. They just have that tech down for completely bringing over the site. They're what WP Engine uses for their own site migrations. So it's pretty solid. I don't know much about Sandbox, but I thought it was cool that it was a free thing. And WP Staging is a plugin that will duplicate your site. It duplicates all the files on your current server and also duplicates all the tables within your current database. And so you can end up with performance issues and other complexities if you don't remember to like remove those staging tables when you're done. And if you ever, what my host has issues where people bring over sites that they had run this plugin on, and now they have 2 sets of database tables. And so it's just a little bit more messy and a little bit more performance intensive to use this plugin, but it works on, I think, particularly smaller, simple sites. It's totally doable. I kind of have a lot of hesitancy around like saying, oh, just use that. It would not be my first choice. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess we can, someone mentioned manual staging via subdomain. For the technical folks in the room, not that hard to do. You can create a subdomain on your web hosting control panel, install WordPress on that subdomain, and then install Migrate Guru, which is by Blog Vault, on your live site. And then you'll be able to have that plugin push your live site to that subdomain. And it works really well. So when I had hosts that I didn't have staging environments for, I used this method quite a bit. And then just make sure that you get rid of that subdomain or that install, because you could get hacked through it if you're not also maintaining that. So something to consider. And I already mentioned the very large sites. Bethany, do you want to talk about licensing?
So this was definitely something that came up in our last conversation. A lot of people were confused about this. If you are using Elementor Pro and you have a single site license, there was concern about how you can use it on a staging server. And Elementor has now added an article to their site, and it's listed in here, and maybe Dave or Ron can put it in the chat for you guys so that you'll have an access to the article. But what it does is it says that if you are on a development site, they're not going to consider it a second license. And the top level domains for a development site like .dev, .locals, .staging, all the ones listed in here, and or if you have a subdomain, they're not considered a license. So that would be dev dot at the beginning of the domain name. So any of these options would not be considered a second license. But a really important thing that I want to mention is that if you are using Elementor on a staging site, you do have to go through the steps of saying, I'm using Elementor Pro. It will force you to do that to be able to use the tools. Then once you push it live again, because it's now considered a new environment, even if it's the original environment, you're going to have to reestablish a connection to Elementor Pro's plugin.
I would also say with these, if you don't have this kind of environment, like at my host, I don't have this. Well, I have a pro license, the developer license, so it's not an issue for me, but you can activate Elementor Pro on a different site. Your site that it's currently on will not break. Again, we're talking about converting a site to Elementor, so this probably isn't really an issue, but for those of you who maybe already have Elementor on the current site and are needing to now, for some reason, do more and create a staging, this is where this comes into place. But if Elementor license is deactivated on a site, everything still works. You just can't do any of the editing features in Elementor, but all the pages and all the functionality will still work.
If you're trying,
it won't break the site to not have the license active on the site.
but if you're trying to add to it, you definitely need to.
Yeah, if you need a new pop-up or something, you're going to have to,
So Ron just wants to remind everybody that in addition to putting that link in there, thank you, Ron, that all of the links from today's talk are going to be in the meetup for today's meetup.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, are we ready to move off staging, or do we feel complete with that?
Yeah, we need to.
Yes, we need to. I think it's time. Okay, so this is how I approach converting a site when someone comes to me. It's like I take this huge inventory of what's on their current site, so I know what I'm getting into, because there could be a lot of functionality coming from plugins that maybe are redundant to Elementor. There could be functionality coming from a theme that I need to recreate. And I need to get a sense of what all of that is. So I created a spreadsheet in Google Sheets that you are welcome to make a copy of. This is view only, but if you want to use this spreadsheet, you can go to File, make a copy, and do whatever you'd like to it. So this is just a general idea. Maybe other people have other ideas you can throw into the chat. But I like to say, either name the content or what type of content it is, and then know kind of what I need to deal with it. So I have an about page. I have one about page. It's built in the Divi Builder.
You just accidentally dragged that over.
Oh,
just hit the undo.
Okay, there we go. It's built in the Divi Builder. It does not have custom fields. If you don't know what custom fields are, you might need to talk to someone technical if you find that there's more than just the title and the content area on the page. Here's the URL on the current site, so I can have a reference of the example. And here's my plan, is I'm going to convert that to an Elementor layout. And then I might have, when I'm doing budgets, like another column for how many hours I think it's going to take me to convert the site. So right now I'm in the process of converting a site. And since all the layout elements and typography and stuff has already been decided, I'm finding it's taking me, maybe whoever originally built the page, it's maybe taking them 2 or 3 hours to build the page. It might just take me an hour and a half, because I don't have to make as many decisions. I just have to kind of recreate the columns or the header or whatever. But depending on how much time it takes you to build a page, and if you had all the images ready for you and you had all the text ready and you could just assemble it, you could get a sense of how much time will you take to recreate each of these, like either Divi or WP Bakery pages. There's no way to convert those pages. You have to rebuild them. So I'll get into the process of that in the next section.
One thing that I wanted to mention that we don't have a slide for is the discovery phase. So what Angela is doing here right now is part of the discovery phase, and it is a paid part of the process of telling somebody what the budget parameters are going to be. And that's why you also need that staging area. You want to pull over the site, see what breaks, see what you need, see what you're going to convert or what your conversion plan is. And that's the beauty of what she's created for you guys, is she's giving you this template so that you can start being better at estimating what it's going to cost and get paid for that discovery with that client.
Yeah, and for me, it's so funny that you said that thing about bringing the site over. I did just that. I assumed that this person's top level pages were all in Elementor, and I think it's because I looked too quickly in their dashboard. So once I turned off their WP Bakery or Infold, they're using the Infold theme. Once I turned off Infold and I looked at the top level pages and they were just filled with short codes, I'm like, oh, I have to build 6 pages. I wasn't planning on building. And so then I could let them know. So that's going to take 10 hours or whatever it's going to take me to do that. But it is nice, even if you've done, you think, a pretty thorough overhaul on what you see in the dashboard of their current site and what you see on the front end. Once you start shutting stuff off and seeing everything that breaks after you do that, it's kind of eye-opening. And sometimes you can't come up with a budget for someone until you do spend, I'd say, it could be anywhere from 1 to 5 hours in figuring out. This is, again, converting an existing site, not creating a new site, but it can take a number of hours to even figure out what's going on in there, and digging into maybe some of the templates. Like, for example, this person has webinars. They had them all as pages. So they had 247 pages of kind of what I would call different types of posts that were stored as pages. But they used a PHP page template for their webinars with a lot of advanced custom fields. And they had this PHP template that was using all of the HTML for the Infold theme. Well, there's not much there that I can reuse. All that I can reuse is the advanced custom fields. And I was so grateful it was an advanced custom fields, because then I can create an Elementor template to mimic what they had done in their PHP template. But in the process, I also created a custom post type for the webinars. And then I used a plugin that let me choose on those webinars to move it to the webinar custom post type. And so now, instead of like 270 or 50 pages of pages, they have 22 pages.
So
cleaned up. Yeah.
We're at 12:48, just to let you know.
I think
the one
that's
thing I do want to mention is they may have had Elementor in there, because clients, they may have put Elementor in there. So don't assume because it's in there, that's what's functioning on the site.
So Angela, I have a question back on the inventory.
Yes.
How would you handle a responsive site here? And in other words, so I mean, I find a lot of the sites that I do, I end up with pages that have either a subset of content for like tablets or phones, or maybe slightly different content for tablets or phones on the same page.
Well, then, I mean, you would in Elementor, you can hide and show.
No, and that's what I'm saying. In your inventory, would you be tracking that information?
Oh, the content. I mean, I think that's helpful if you want to break it down into like the notes area, or maybe even a sub row below about, hide, show. I think that, yeah, as much as you can put into here, and if a spreadsheet works, spreadsheet's super simple. You might need something more like Asana, a project management tool where you could make some of those pages their own project, and then you could break down notes about the page itself, each of these things. So yeah, make as many notes as you can. And I discovered that as well. Like, yeah, there were content issues that I also needed to deal with. So it can go kind of deep. This is kind of a high level, but you're totally right. It can be a process to figure out what was going on that old site and where it was coming from, because you could have luck, on this site, they didn't have any custom post types, unfortunately. But had they registered, why I have how registered is, like in this case with this site, if they registered the custom post type with a theme function, and you're going to get rid of that theme, you're going to need to either bring that function over to the new site, which I'll talk about when we get into that part of converting the site, or you can install the CPT UI plugin to recreate that custom post type. So there's kind of a process. This is more of how you're going to do it, but you need to dive in and see, where's this content coming from? Is it coming from a plugin? Is it coming from a theme, the theme, and what's my plan? So that's the purpose. And then it will also let you know, based on your technical knowledge, can I do this or do I need help to do this? So if you start to see weird things, you're like, I have no idea how this page is being displayed. I don't know how this content is even coming up. Maybe you need help to figure that out. So, but I think spreadsheets, or you need some method, whether it's Trello or spreadsheets or Asana, to get a handle. I think a spreadsheet is a great high level view. And then you might have some other document or process that you're using to get into the nitty gritty of each of these pieces of content. Because, for example, you know, creating this, even this PHP template, there could be a lot more depth here that I'm not really getting into. There could be a lot of complex conditional statements and things. And so it would be, but I think a spreadsheet for that high level view is, I think, super helpful. So take it for what you will. Let me go back into presentation mode here. So this is just basically a slide saying everything that I just said, but I would also create a spreadsheet for all the plugins, and you can get the spreadsheet from Site Health Report. So if you go to your tools in WordPress and go to Site Health to the advanced area, you can copy and paste all of those plugins into a Google Sheet and then make a note. What is this plugin for? How's it being used? Are they even using it? Is it a duplicate of something that Elementor does? Can I replace it?
Supported?
Do they have 3 versions of pop-up plugins on their site? Yes. Do they have 2 SEO plugins? Yes.
When's the last time they updated it?
Yeah. Do they have 2 versions of Google Analytics? I mean, people have, or do they have like 3 slider plugins? I mean, people, this is a time to clean house and take inventory and start to think about what you need to get rid of, because a lot of people have plugins installed because of the theme or because of the page builder they're using. And those need to go away. So you're going to want to simplify, 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 and not have anything active that you're not going to use. So we'll get to that. So some plugins you may keep. Bethany, do you want to talk a minute about this?
Well, actually, I want to say really quick about a conversation that's happening in the chat about sometimes you'll see this site and the client's coming to you for one purpose, and you'll realize through doing this audit that they need to have a brand new clean install, that they need to do a complete redesign of their site. And that's a conversation that you can start having with people. So thanks for bringing that up, guys. So plugins you need to keep if they exist on your current site. So if you're seeing some of these plugins, there's a reason that you may want to keep them. For instance, the Yoast SEO plugin is going to have all of that, the keyword research that's already been compiled for the client. So you don't want to turn that off. You want to keep that running. You may have to go in and adjust some keywords or something like that if you're changing the pages. If you're doing that redesign, that's going to be something that you're going to pull out and go through that information. But with any of the plugins that we have here, there might be a reason for them. So we talked about the custom post type. She mentioned that in her spreadsheet, but the custom post type, that is something that you may want to leave on even after you convert over that in the advanced custom field, because you aren't redoing those pages. Well,
you might be redoing the templates that show that content,
yeah,
but you need that has their actual content in it.
Yeah.
So if you turn them off, you're going to lose the content. I mean, you're not going to lose the content; it'll still be there, but you won't be able to work with it. So
yeah, and
those are good signs. Like, oh, if they actually have custom post types, I probably need to leave that in place. But I'll need to design something in Elementor to show that content.
Yep. And or you might end up moving it to a different type of custom post type or something like that. So backup plugins, we talked about the importance of a backup, always backup. So any of the ones that you're seeing here have other components that have content in them. And that's the main criteria of why you don't want to just turn them off.
But things that are more so these are more like functional plugins, I would say. I'd say a lot of the plugins you're going to get rid of are more presentational. They're going to be the sliders. They're going to be the widget areas. They're going to be the modal windows and the pop-ups and the galleries and the those kind of presentational things are most likely you're going to
find a tool within Elementor itself to handle that function. Yeah.
Yeah, and anything that's specific to the theme or the other page builder should
Hey,
be.
you've got Val waiting.
Yeah.
Val, what was your question?
Thanks. Val.
A couple questions. I was using Next Gen Gallery on my site, and I realized that all the images, if I deinstall Next Gen image Gallery, all the images go away because none of the images are in the media area. And I thought that was really strange.
Yeah, it's in itself a content management plugin for images, and so there's no reason to get rid of Next Gen Gallery if you don't want to. So I recommend and use Next Gen Gallery a lot. So I think if you have, that would be a separate conversation we could have, though. If we have some time at the end, we can talk about Next Gen.
And then the other question is, I use a portfolio plugin for a site,
and that may still be fine. So what you want to do, that portfolio plugin might be creating a custom post type and some fields for you to use, and as long as if it still works with Elementor. For example, my previous theme that I was using had a portfolio plugin, and I found that it still worked with my new theme and Elementor, so I just left it installed. So that may still work. So I would just see how well it plays and if you feel like you've got to reinvent the wheel or not.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other items to consider, and then we'll move on to the steps to getting converted are, does the current site have special fonts? Are they through Adobe Typekit? Do they have any? I would look in their child theme folder to see if they have any fonts in their folders. Have they uploaded fonts? You can use what font or look at their style sheet to see what fonts they have installed and make sure that you get those on the new site if you're going to continue to use them, and know what licensing or whatever is required for that.
You knew I was about to say that.
Oh, I spend a lot of time like, what font are they using here? And like, okay, I guess I got to set up, especially if it was another developer, I've got to set up my own type kit for that, or I need to upload these fonts that they have to the Elementor custom fonts. And then, what functions are in their site's functions file. There's a lot to this process. So that's why I'm just kind of giving you a laundry list of all the things you're going to have to think about. It's not just install Elementor and make pages pretty. That's not what this is about. Like, that's almost the easy part of this process. The hard part is getting divorced from your old theme. Your old page builder can be like, it truly is like you're going to the lawyer and you're dividing up the property and like even figuring out what assets you own or share or whatever. It can get quite technical. For a simple brochure site, you probably aren't going to encounter a lot of this, but for sites that kind of have had maybe a few developers, there might be a Frankenstein of a lot of things going on that you're going to have to get your arms around.
Or if the site was originally built in 2005, it may have some weird things. So we're going to talk about how you might want to just start clean there, but we'll talk about that later on.
Oh, we're going to talk about it now, Bethany.
We're going to talk about that now.
Yay. Clearing the decks. Okay, I'm going to do a time check here because I said it should be 12:50. So we're 10 minutes behind, but that's okay because I did tell you that we might go a little bit over the 1:30 mark. So, okay, so clearing the decks. Should you start with a clean install or make a copy of the existing site? there's nothing that feels better than just doing a clean install, I'm telling you. It can be really, really, when you're dealing with
Liberating.
it can be really liberating. It's like, oh my gosh, let's just get rid of all this. Then you could look back at the old site and say, okay, they had advanced custom fields. You can export those and import those into the new site. Oh, they had the custom post type plugin, or they had some custom post types, and I'll recreate those with the custom post type plugin, and or export the settings from the old plugin to my new install. And then you can import the old content. And I have a couple resource slides at the end. I'm not going to get into that process. It can be kind of complex. But if it's a simple brochure site, you just have some pages and posts, by all means, do a clean install and just export to an XML file if they have a bunch of posts and import it into the new site. And I have a couple tools in the resources area that can help you a little bit with that. But that's a really good idea. It's harder for me when I have a client who has got WooCommerce or an active membership site. That and
They're tying in with a lot of marketing tools.
Yeah, this yes, if they have just so many things set up. I have one client, I was really on the fence about this, but what made me decide is I looked at their custom fields, their advanced custom fields. They had a bunch of repeater fields. And I have found it really, really hard to do, even using WP All Import Pro, to bring in repeater field content reliably. When I do the export import, I've really tried, people, I really tried. And so in that case, I just decided to optimize their database as much as I could. I'm good with database stuff. I dumped a bunch of tables. I went through their whole WP content folder and just deleted a bunch of folders and stuff that were kind of left over from old security plugins, old gallery plugins, Slider Revolution, what have you. I just did as much cleanup as I could. So it's a consideration. That's all. And so I kind of talked about the clone advantages there and what I just said about the. So Bethany, so we have an 11-step process that we're going to go through, and then we'll be done with our presentation. And so we're going to start with step 1. Bethany, do you want to talk about step 1?
So is this where you're going to go live at this point, or?
No, we go live in April.
No. I thought you were going to pull up a live site.
Oh,
that's okay. No, it might not be here.
Not yet.
Okay. So deactivating unnecessary plugins and activating needed ones. So, if you are cloning the site, you want to make sure, again, that you are looking through all of the plugins and making sure that.
You know what? I think I can. Oh yeah, let's do these 3 slides and I'll go to the live site.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So you want to make sure that you are taking into account what the plugin does. Is it needed still? Is it still being supported, right? Or do you need to find some other tool that does that? What's your pro tip here? Re-upload all existing plugins from fresh copy if site previously hacked. Do you want to talk about that? Because I'm not quite sure.
Well, like if you're just going to clone a site and you have no idea the history and stuff, you could be cloning PHP backdoors from hackers and malware, and who knows what you're cloning, right? So I'm just kind of recommending reinstall the plugins. I mean, I think it's just kind of
yeah,
that's all.
Okay, so I think if you're doing a clean install, you're going to obviously have to install all the plugins, and you'll have your spreadsheet as your guide, so you can go through everything. Am I talking?
Yeah, you could talk about this one. We don't have to.
Okay.
It comes up a lot as to whether you can use your existing theme.
So this is all going to also change with 5.7. So this is an interesting conversation to be having in general right now, because 5.7 is going to give us some extra functionality that will allow us to use the builder tools for your header and your footer, which you can't currently do. But these are different theme options that play nicely with Elementor. Hello is actually from the team over at Elementor, and it's really, as Angela says, plain vanilla. It's really lightweight. It's there as just this almost empty shell as a base for your development that you're doing most of the functionality in the presentation within Elementor Pro specifically. Generate Press is one that Angela likes to use, so I'll let you talk about that in Ocean WP, and then I'll talk about Astra.
Yeah, Generate Press is just super light. I use it. I'm not really using the theme, honestly. I have Elementor Pro. So Generate Press is just serving as the container. And I don't do anything with Generate Press. I do everything with Elementor. So I like that it's just lightweight. It has some good hooks if I need to do anything with advanced functions and templates. But it's just light, easy, simple. Yeah, I think for the comparison to Astra, Astra has a pro version that you could do.
Oh, well, Astra, I was going to talk about. I don't know
go ahead and talk about that. Yeah.
I don't know Ocean WP. So
that one has a few more WooCommerce functionality. So if you're going to do a WooCommerce site, you could look at Ocean WP's WooCommerce templates. If you're going to redo kind of everything in Elementor anyway, that's less of a thing.
So I use Astra as my base, and I really don't do anything else in Astra except apply it to the site and then build everything within Elementor Pro. But I have students who come to me who are looking to build their own site. And the nice thing about Astra is that you can get a bunch of pre-built templates for the whole site, a whole site look. So not an individual template. You can get an individual templates as well through Elementor, but in this case they call them starter sites, but they're completely flushed out themes within Astra that you can then put your own content in if you want to. So that's a nice choice for somebody who's kind of a DIY but doesn't have a designer involved.
Just a quick, Bethany, sorry, just a quick clarification on that. The starter sites can be used with almost any theme. So they're really importing Elementor and or Gutenberg or Beaver Builder templates in there. So you don't have to use Astra in order to use the starter sites. You can use them with Generate Press or a whole bunch of other different themes. Just wanted to clarify that.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, the ones that are on Astra's site as the starter sites are exclusive to Astra, aren't they?
They might have some pro ones that might be exclusive to Astra. I'm not sure, but I know if you download the free starter sites plugin from the WordPress repository, all of those starter sites can be used on any theme. It even they mentioned it. I think they updated it recently to mention it in their description of the free plugin, but it's possible there are some pro ones. I'm not sure about that.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, I should mention Cadence theme too. Cadence is a really good theme. And I always forget to put it on here. It's just, I'll add it to the slides after. But a lot of people like Cadence. And I think Cadence, Kira was asking about Gutenberg blocks and themes that have good blocks, which I think is a really valid question. And I think Cadence, a lot of things that will have blocks will often offer that as an add-on anyway, like a plugin. But I think Cadence does have some blocks as well. So if anyone's used Cadence and can comment in the chat about Cadence, that would be great. So,
and Walter mentioned like Ocean WP is easy to turn almost everything off. The advantage of something like Astra is you don't have to turn a lot of things off to get started. But it's great to know that with Ocean WP, you have the ability to turn them all off. So,
yeah, and
thanks, Walter.
Yeah, so the main thing is that if you had a theme from Theme Forest, some fancy dancy theme that had WP Bakery, and that was the site you're coming from, do not use that theme. You're going to have more headaches and more problems, and especially something like the Infold theme, which has its own builder built in. No. You need to go with a theme that's explicitly designed to work with Elementor and set, like, that's the stated thing about it. And you're just going to have a really crappy looking site while you're during your rebuild. So the other part to that, I can talk about the child theme, is that I'm kind of like this evangelist of child themes, because
Yes.
even if you don't use it as someone who doesn't really know what a child theme is, and you just activate Astra or activate Generate Press, is a child theme just basically creates a container for you to be able to make future customizations to either functions, a style sheet, or to templates with the theme. And I have seen people do that in the parent theme. Even my students, who have evangelized this to for a decade, to create a child theme, they'll just add in their styles or their functions to the bottom of the parent theme. And there's a potential it could get overwritten, but it's just very bad practice. So
Yeah. I say, even if you don't think you're ever going to go into the code, believe me, at some point you're going to need to go into the code. So put the child in right away.
yes, sorry, I accidentally exited out of my full screen here. Let's see, how did I do that? Oh, I think I need to go like this. So if whatever theme you're using, they should provide a child theme, and we've linked to some of these common themes and where you can get a child theme. And what you're going to do is install the parent theme, don't activate it, then install the child theme and activate the child theme. That's the process. And both have to be active. And then if you're not sure what you're going to do with the child theme, that's okay. Just leave it there. Someone who knows what they're doing with child themes is going to be just so glad it's there to use.
Kimberly, open your mic if you still have a question about the child theme, but hopefully that answered it for you.
But so you install the parent and the child before you activate either?
Well, you don't activate the parent, you activate the child. And the child inherits, the child's pretty blank. It has a blank style sheet, a blank functions file, and like a screenshot. That's all that's in it.
And the child's theme is just to, I'm a little new at this, but it is to make it so that you could, manipulate, things that would normally require code without it.
No, it's things that would require code that wouldn't then won't get overwritten when you do updates of the parent theme.
Oh, so this is like a good practice thing.
This is a good, yes. So what
Okay.
happens is the blank child theme inherits all the functionality, all of the styles, all the templates and everything from the parent theme, even though it's empty. It like there's this magic line in the style sheet that tells it, hey, this is the parent. And so WordPress has created this ability, like the child just knows, I get all my functions from the parent. It's kind of like DNA,
And Dave put in a link to a great article about child themes.
Yay.
Okay, so just to review, you install the parent and the child, but you only activate the child.
Yes. So you activate the child. The child is now the active theme. It's getting all its functionality from the parent. So if you need to add, like, you'll come across times in your development where someone's like, add this piece of code to your functions.php file. You'll do that in the child theme. Or if it's like, add this CSS to your theme, you'll do that in the child theme. And then when the parent theme gets updated, those changes you made will not get overwritten. And so there's other reasons for that. Like if you're working with WooCommerce or an events calendar plugin or some plugin that says you can modify our templates if you copy them to your theme to this folder, you'll do that into your child theme. And then your child theme just becomes the house for all the little customizations that you do that kind of either modify the parent or modify a plugin. All happens in your child theme.
So
we should do a whole group thing.
Yeah, we definitely should. And the one thing I just want to add is, and another Angela has a question about what happens if you haven't used a child theme. If you've put code into your Astra theme, you just need to compile that so you know what code you put in there and throw that into your child theme and install that. But
the other thing that could happen though, with Angela's thing though, is that
Uh-huh.
but what can happen is all your theme options will go away. So anything you set in the customizer will
Yes.
disappear. So there is a tool, a plugin you can install to export all the customizer settings. And then when you activate the child theme, import your customizer settings. Does that
Do you
make
know what
sense?
that's called?
Ron's gonna find it for us and put it in the
I may have
links.
heard.
It's like, yeah, it's export customizer settings. And then Doug put in import import export. So if your theme has an import export for its specific settings, or if they were all done in the customizer, you could do it that way. But if you switch to activating a child theme, some of those theme options are going to go away and those customizer settings will disappear. So have a plan for that. Thank you, Ron. He found it. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Next steps for building the site.
If a theme doesn't have a child theme, there is a way to make a child theme. And that's a conversation that we can have with you guys. Maybe we'll do a whole session on child themes.
Yeah, and there is a child theme generator that is just generic. And Ron, maybe you could find the link for that and throw it up. That will let you create a child theme for any theme, I think. We are now only, we gained 3 minutes, so yay.
Fantastic, look at us.
Okay. Bethany, do you want to talk about this?
This
This is the therapy slide.
So we've been saying this all along. The best path forward is to get a staging site and install a clone of the site, and then turn off your current theme, deactivate any plugins that are going to be irrelevant, and your site is going to break. You have your live site, so don't freak out. You have your live site still to go back if you need to and look, oh, that page had this content on it, and when I pulled it into this into the cloned staging area, that content went away. So I know that that is using the page builder from the old theme and or a page builder plugin. So I know I need to get all that content and I have it on my live site. So don't worry, it is our intent that the site is going to break.
Yeah, because
So-
people were asking in the comments even before the meetup, like, well, how do I convert to Elementor without breaking my site? And the answer is you can't. You're going to have to break some eggs to make your omelet. So,
yeah. So know that this is part of the process.
So do you think this is a good time for me to pop out into a site?
Yeah.
And then if you have the slides open on your computer, Bethany, you can.
What number is that? Do you know?
Let me just kind of try to.
I have it.
I need to get out of full screen mode.
Okay.
Here.
So we're going to set up site identity and primary menu.
Yeah, and here's where it was like, oh, should I have done this with my site? So I am going to stop my screen share just so I can get into my site here without revealing too many client things for a moment. What I did is I decided if I'm going to tell people to break their site, I should just be willing to break my site. Does that sound fair?
I think that's a great plan and everybody appreciates it.
So I don't think I'm going to reveal too many personal details about my site here. Okay, I'll share my screen again. Okay, this is my site. This is built in an old page builder. So I'm just going to do the advice that we've given you, and I'm going to, first, I think I'm just going to.
And this is a clone of her site.
This is a clone of my site. Yep. Hasn't been
Want to make
updated in a
sure
while.
we say that.
Yeah,
So
so I'm
she's
going to
already
go to all
cloned
my
it.
active plugins, and I'm just going to see, you know, what am I going to keep? This content blocks plugin, I'm not going to use that. I don't even know why I'm still using FeedBurner. But I'll just keep
Not
it
the
at
case
it.
of Angela built her site before,
Yeah,
a
I'll probably leave the gravity
long time ago.
forms. Jetpack I'm using for some galleries. I think I have a post about Jetpack, so I need to leave that on. This banners plugin was a part of my theme. The MailChimp, I think I'm going to get rid of because I can do my MailChimp subscriptions with Elementor forms. Monster
And
Insights
if
is
you
my
didn't
Google
see our talk
Analytics.
on that, if you didn't see our talk on that, we did a talk on paid pop-ups that we have video for in our meetup notes.
Yeah, how to use,
our
and you don't have to do it as a pop-up, but we talked about how to create a form and connect it to
Mm.
MailChimp. I'm just going to disable my Google Analytics for now. My portfolios plugin, like Valerie was talking about, I think I can use that. Project Huddle is just a project management tool. I don't need that on my staging. I'm probably going to migrate all of these redirects to the redirection plugin in April. These are all the theme specific plugins I'm using. I was using the Theme by Theme Boulevard. So it's like, wow, I really don't need to use any of those. Thirsty Affiliates is just a URL rewrite. Tweeple is a plugin I was using for feeds with the old plugin. Ultimate add-ons for Gutenberg, that's Gutenberg, so I'll probably keep that. Oh, I don't probably need to have all my performance stuff on right now. So I'm just going to deactivate all these plugins that I had been using, and now I'll look at my site and see kind of what damage I did.
This is what it looked like before, and this is what it looks like after.
And I haven't even deactivated the theme yet. So now I'm going to go to themes. I'm going to add new, search for generate press. Install that. And like I said, we're not going to activate it. So if I go back to my link here, I can download this child theme. And that should just kind of put a zip. Let me just.
Well, we
Oh,
could.
I think I put that in wrong. There we go. There, okay. So now I installed Generate Press, but I didn't activate it. It's not active. So now I'm going to go to, can I just confirm safe mode and get this out of my way? Now I'm going to upload. I have to upload that theme. And it's in my that child theme, and it's in my downloads folder. And now I am going to activate that child theme.
And there's really no weight to this child theme because
it's
she hasn't
blank.
put anything in it yet. And even if she did, it's gonna be minimal because it's only gonna have any code changes.
So welcome to my brand new site. So then I said in the instructions, I haven't even really installed Elementor yet. I will, but I said, go to the customizer and set your site identity and your menus. So in Appearance Customize, something will start to make my site feel a little more familiar. And Elementor header templates will use this logo in the site identity, as well as Astra or the themes if you use the theme. I'm going to hide the site title, and I'm going to select my logo. So I probably have a file in here that's called logo. And, just to be sort of, we might talk about this at a future point. I would probably create an SVG file for this. Right now, I'm just going to use a PNG file. I usually skip the cropping part. And then you might set a logo width, but I'm going to be setting the width in Elementor. So I don't, I could set it here, I suppose. So I'll give it kind of a width. And now it's at least I have a site identity. And then the second thing, sometimes your menus will break badly. You'll need to go to Appearance Menus and just make sure that your menu, that is your menu you had before, is set as the primary menu, or whatever this is called in your theme. It might be called primary navigation.
Yeah, it may have
And-
been called something different in your old theme, and that's why it's not appearing.
Yeah, so now at least I have a logo and some navigation to work with. And then, so we did that. The next step is going to be setting some global styles. And so what I recommend, I think this is a really good practice, is just, let me let me see if I have Elementor already installed. I do, needs to be updated and activated. So this is presuming that you're going to use Elementor to build your header, footer, and the rest of your content. And
Can you scroll up for a second so I can show them?
yeah, let me
At the
just-
top there, you'll see this is where it's saying her license isn't matching. And that's the message that you'll get
yes,
when you're on a staging site. So you just want to correct that. And again, it's not going to
Yeah.
go towards your single license.
if in this
you
case,
are
it,
on.
in this case, it will because of I don't have the right kind of URL, but
But it doesn't matter because she has an unlimited amount of license.
and I don't really have Elementor activated on my live site, so it's not really an issue since I'm switching from another theme builder. But so the only other thing I wanted to see happen is I know Elementor has a big update, and it's so funny. It's really hard to get that update to show up. I had this happen on another site where there it is. It wasn't showing up on the plugins page, but it was showing up on the updates page. So,
And a good rule of thumb is don't update both Elementor and Elementor Pro at the same time, because sometimes for some reason it does a critical error message.
oh yeah, you want to update the free version, make sure that's updated, and then update the pro version. And that's what I ended up doing here. So now my next step in this process is creating a header. My next step is site settings. So what I recommend doing is just going to pages.
And do you want to
new.
tell them why you're going to page first?
Well, I want to set my site settings for the global, for my global styles. And the only way you can get to the styles, the default styles for Elementor, is through an Elementor formatted page.
Which is
And
very silly, but
it's very
currently.
silly, but it's how it needs to be done. But there is a purpose for me creating this page, because I'm going to add particular content to this page that's going to let me see what my site settings actually look like. And I'm going to just call this like dummy text page. And I'm going to publish that page and then edit it with Elementor. Here's the key when you start editing pages with Elementor is, it took me forever to figure this out, by the way, but I think it took Bethany in Meetup last year showing this to me. You go to the gear icon and set the page layout to Elementor full width. On the edit page, there's also that option. It's just sometimes hard to find. Then you'll have a full width Elementor page, and most of us who are doing Elementor layouts are going to want to have that full width page. Okay.
I think that was Dave that showed us that, by the way.
That's awesome. So with Elementor, I'm going to set up a new section and drag some widgets in so I can see how the styles I'm going to set up look. And I'm going to do this really quick because I think you just site settings in itself is kind of a meetup. But I'm going to add a few heading levels and quickly add like 4 levels of headings and a button. That's mostly what you'll see. So this heading I'm going to call heading 1. This is going to be heading 2. This is going to be heading 3. This is going to be heading 4. One other thing that we need to do before we get into our global site settings that Sharon and I went back and forth on, and now I'm like, this is the most counterintuitive thing in Elementor, but in order to get Elementor styles that you're setting up to work, you have to disable Elementor styles. So I'm going to exit to the dashboard. I think I have a slide that says read this other slide first and then do this. Under Elementor settings, this is a good time to check these two boxes to disable Elementor's default colors and default fonts. And it says this will make Elementor inherit the colors from your theme, but it also makes Elementor inherit the colors from the site settings, in my experience. For some, I just think they need to change the wording. And Sharon, I'm right about this, right?
Yeah.
And so save changes. This is also a good time if you're using a typekit font to go into integrations and add your typekit font ID, because we're going to do some styling settings now. Okay, back to my dummy content page. So here's the counterintuitive thing about doing site settings in Elementor, but it's like, I'm just showing you the process I do. The first thing I do is I go to Customizer and set a logo. The second thing I do is set a menu. The third thing I do is check those boxes. The fourth thing I do is set up a dummy content page. I might add more than what you see here. And then I go to that dummy content page and click that hamburger menu. You see the hamburger menu in the upper left corner. Click the hamburger menu, go to site settings, and you'll be in this blue area, the magical blue area. And here's where you can set global colors that go with your branding. So you can set up all your branding colors. You can set up your fonts. What are your default fonts? Are you using Roboto is what comes default. Oh, click. Maybe I want to use Open Sans for everything. And that's gonna be my primary font. My secondary font might be Open Sans Condensed. My text font would be Open Sans, so on and so forth. So I'm gonna set up my fonts and then go to typography. And now I can say, here's what I want my body font color to be. I want my body font to be the same as my, oh, not my secondary, but my primary font, my Open Sans font. And then I can start setting up my like H1 font and its size and color, and my H2 and its size and color, and you know, so on and so forth. And then when you're done with typography, you can go to buttons and style your buttons and set the typography on your buttons. And you know, maybe I want my buttons to have the blue background, and maybe I want them to have the green hover. So this is just a good way for you to get your base styles set up. And so I'd recommend you do that. And then as you build out your pages, it'll be so much faster and quicker to build your pages, because as you add a heading 1 or a heading 2 or heading 3 or a button, it'll all have the formatting that you need. So that's what I recommend. What's the next slide, Bethany?
The next slide is just some tips for that. And I think you've already done all that. The one after that is recreate the header and footer.
So then you'll go to back out to the dashboard. Just a tip, if you've built an Elementor page, don't ever click this button. Don't ever go back to the WordPress editor. It will disconnect your Elementor layout. To get it back, just edit your page with Elementor again and just make a change and save it, and we'll reconnect it. But once a page is in Elementor, don't ever click this, because that's the I'm leaving you Elementor button.
Yeah, we found that out the hard way. So don't hear what we state.
Well, and you'll do it, you'll break it, and then you'll fix it. So for the header and footer, if you're using Elementor Pro and not your theme's header and footer options, you would go to Templates Theme Builder and click Add New and say, hey, I want to build a header, and give your template a name. Could be just header, since it's the header. Create a new template. There's a lot of sample templates that are available from Elementor. I usually, if I'm going to use one of these sample templates, I'll pick one that has the least styling. And they're not all created equal. Some of them I feel like are like I'd rather start from scratch, but I think I'll just pick this one to start with. And so now I have a header with some styling, and I could go ahead and modify the styling. This is interesting. I think it's always a good idea to use the navigator when you are working in an Elementor layout, and it's in the lower left corner, and it will help you to navigate these areas and see what's going on. So for some reason, there's a column with
the icon to get to it is in the lower left corner, and then it appears on the right side for you.
Yeah, and you can drag it around too. Helps to have a big monitor doing this work. So for some reason, it has this weird heading. I'm going to get rid of this column. And now I have, let's see how they have this. So maybe I want this to only be 20% of my header area. Anyway, you'll fuss with your header. You'll spend, I'd say you could spend 2 to 3 hours on your header and mobile menus and stuff. And you might want to watch the advanced pop-ups class, because I show how to create a mobile menu with a pop-up, which is what I've been doing lately. So you got your header all set up. It's all tricked out and styled. You'll publish, and you need to add a condition, because you need to tell Elementor, where do I want this header to show? And I want it to show on the entire site. Save and close. Now we'll see how's my site looking. You know, I'm kind of having something starting to happen here. So then you'll repeat that process for your footer. You'll create a footer and do a whole layout and apply it to your entire site. What's next on our slides, Bethany?
You had some extra notes for recreating. I think you may have gone over everything. I'm just checking really quick.
I'm gonna get here. I could just pop into here. Okay. Recreate the header and footer. Yep, got that. Got that.
That one.
Got that.
Okay.
Yeah, those were just all the steps. Oh, so now you're going to recreate your unique page layout.
Wait, nope, you forgot something. Go up to step 8, cleaning.
You can finish with your header footer.
No.
Oh, cleaning shortcodes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really
yes.
important
Okay, so now you're going to go recreate, you're going to redo some pages, but if you had a plugin that had a lot of shortcodes, depending on where it left them, if you're going to recreate all of the pages, then you will see them in the WordPress dashboard when you, like if I want to go recreate, my about page, under pages, if I went to about, if I had a plugin that left behind shortcodes, it would probably leave them all behind in this area. In this case, actually, how nice. Did I create my, I think I decided that I was going to test out Gutenberg. So I have a Gutenberg page, which is fine to leave that content there. But if this page had a bunch of shortcodes,
maybe your contact page.
Yeah, let me see. I'm not going to have.
You're not going to have any broken.
No, let me go to my classes page. Is probably just going to be blank and not show anything because that was in the other layout builder. So, oh, here's a shortcode. So you might have something like this, and you might have a few shortcodes, and like, oh, I'm not going to be using any of this stuff. You could just delete the block that those are left in. I would just get rid of them. If you use Divi Builder, it's possible that also all of your posts are filled with shortcodes. And in that case, what you'll want to do, I highly recommend, it's a cheap plugin, but purchase this plugin. It's like $19 and it will get rid of all your shortcodes. So on one client's site, I've seen that a lot of their posts are filled with shortcodes. And wow, I had one client, they had 200 posts and it was just littered with shortcodes. The thing about cleaning up the shortcodes is it may clean up shortcodes that were part of the content, like for buttons or other content that now maybe the content's going to be there, but the link is going to be not there anymore because the button shortcode is gone. So there's going to be some manual cleanup you're going to have to do particularly on posts that might have had shortcodes in them. Just plan some hours of cleanup work from the shortcodes, but at least this plugin will get rid of the bulk of them for you, and then you'll just be kind of cleaning up after it. So that was an
And remember,
important
if you
step.
did accidentally delete all your buttons, the live site is still there. You can go over there and get the URLs. It's going to be a pain, but it's going to be a pain anyway if you have hundreds of buttons. So I have a client who every page or every post in a certain category, and there's over 150 of them, has a button on it. And we're going to have to recreate that button because it was using the previous page builder tool.
Yeah, and also what I've done is I've created my own shortcode functions to replace that button's functionality. So then I don't have to go replace all the buttons if that shortcode was left behind. If I didn't do the automatic cleanup to get rid of it. You can, in some cases, and not all the fancy WP Bakery builder layouts, you're not going to want to recreate those shortcodes. But if it's like a button shortcode and you're going to preserve it, you could, if you had some PHP skills and reference the shortcode manual on the dev WordPress site, you could recreate that functionality and just keep it. And then you just continue to use that shortcode for buttons. But that would be a bit more advanced.
Like Matt Wood is in that hell right now. Sorry, Matt.
Oh yeah, shortcode hell is for real. So then you're going to go recreate your unique page layouts using Elementor. We did do 2-part series on this, and so I would recommend watching our video on creating Elementor layouts. We did introduction and then an advanced templating. So the introduction talks about unique page layouts, and then so this is going to be, all of your standalone pages you're just going to have to recreate. Oh, I was supposed to combine these slides, so this is a bit verbose, sorry. When you go to do this process though, I just wanted to let you know that there are some lingo that you're going to have to learn if you're used to using WP Bakery or Divi or some other page builder. A row is a section in Elementor. A column in the previous page builder, we still have columns, but now we have sections and intersections, and the section or intersection has columns. There's not a column widget, if you will. There's just sections, and sections can be divided into columns. So that's kind of terminology you need to get your head around. In other builders, you have blocks and modules. In Elementor, those discrete items are called widgets. In previous builders, you might have had templates, layouts, or layout modules. And in Elementor, it's just templates. In other page builders, you had post carousel, post list, post grid. The post list widget in Elementor will let you create a post grid. So don't let that confuse you. It's like, where's the post grid? It's part of the post list widget because the list can display in a list or can display in a grid. And there is a post slider widget as well. Then you need to recreate your single post, archive, 404, and search result templates. And these happen in a different area. So when we're using Elementor, there's 2 parts to Elementor that we're using. We have, when we use Elementor to apply a unique layout to a page, you go to pages and you edit the page. In this case, I would edit my classes page and I would click edit with Elementor. And I would go to that gear icon and choose full width. And then start adding content to my classes page. And then I'll have like a unique layout for my classes page. So you'll do that for all of your unique pages on your site. So that's one way to use Elementor. The other way to use Elementor that we talk about in part 2 are kind of advanced theme building layouts class, which is, there's a video here, Introduction to Elementor Theme Builder, is under Templates Theme Builder. So this is the place where you'll create your single post template. So how your posts will look, your archive template, how your category pages will look, how your search results and 404 page will look. And you might be fine with how the theme formats those, but if you want to do something a little more fancy or a little more unique, you would do it here. And then that single post template would get applied to all of your posts. So right now, if we look at one of my posts, it looks like this. So that might be fine. I throw some widgets in the sidebar and I'm like, cool, I have a nice post layout. But if I wanted to get fancy with that, I could add a single post template. And I'm just going to choose one of the existing ones just so you can see, you know, I could really trick out this template. Let's see, I think I have a favorite one down here. Yeah, maybe I'll try this one. There is something about these post templates I'm going to share with you though after this gets inserted that, oh yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, so now I have my hideous image, featured image, and my cool layout. I'm going to publish this template. And again, in order for the templates to work, you have to add a condition. So I'm going to not say all singular because that will apply to some of my custom post types, like my portfolio post type. I'm just going to say I want this to apply to all my blog posts. Save and close. And this is discussed more in our other video if you watch the other session that we did a couple months ago. So now if I refresh my post, I can see now I have my new layout. So you may want to do that. You may want to, you know, set up all your single post archive, custom post templates, your search results template. I think it's really good. The 404, error 404, no one ever thinks about what their error 404 page looks like, but it's a good idea to do that. And then lastly, you might recreate some of your forms, your pop-ups, landing pages, think about how you're going to handle sidebars and widget areas and custom post types and all of that. And that is kind of what we had for today. I think we got through it.
Woohoo!
Okay, woo, and it's before 2. And if anyone has any questions, and so many people just stayed with us, hung on to us. That's great. And the slides are going to be available. We're going to make this recording available.
Any recordings from past events are available on the associated page for that event.
Was this helpful? Did you learn something new? We really want to get that feedback. Or is it like, oh, I know all this stuff. Yeah, oh, good. Yeah, sometimes it helps just to have someone methodically go through their process. And it's like, now you have a process you can repeat and think about. We love to hear your feedback. If you need any more information, definitely comment on the discussion. If we missed some critical thing you really wanted to know, now's the time. We're here. Unmute yourself.
And don't forget that next month we are talking about something that is equally important, and that is taking what we created on that staging area and pushing that live. So that's an important talk that we have coming up.
And Ron posted Elementor pricing is going up March 9th.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we mention that. Oh no, this is the last time we're seeing you. Get your pro license now. If you're going to get that 1,000-person license, do it now, or 1,000-seat license, because it's going to go up to $1,000 a year. So you definitely want to get in on the action.
And if you already have the pro unlimited, they are honoring that indefinitely. So you don't have to do anything new.
Yay, Lindsay said she just got hers. I'm glad to hear that this was helpful for people.
And I'm curious if there's somebody, I know there are a couple of you guys who have done a lot of conversions already. And if there's a tip that you want to share, open up your mic and share away.
Yeah, tell us, is there something you really think is helpful in this process that we didn't cover?
Yeah, we want to learn too.
You guys are fabulous. It was amazing. I'm really new, but I'm telling you, I loved it. I loved it. I'm going to watch the other recordings and I'll be here in April.
And is the
Yay.
pup gonna be with you in April?
Of course, Scarlett is. I brought her here on purpose just because you said to bring the dog at the end.
Fantastic. So yeah, we're glad that it worked for you. And the nice thing, Kimberly, is that everybody can go back and rewatch these videos as well. So if you want to have Angela and I walk you through it while you're doing it, just open up the video, pull we're not going to mark where each thing is happening, but just pull along the video until you get to the spot that you need, and then listen to it, turn it off, do it on the live site or the staging site. Go back to the video and watch it that way.
There's lots of
Do the original, is it successive? Does it build, do you start at the beginning or you dive in the middle? I mean, I feel like this
Are other meetups, you mean?
Yeah, with regard to the previous meetups, or is it more topic oriented?
Topic oriented.
Well, but we've tried to be little sequential in that we did an introduction to the Elementor Builder, and then introduction to the theme builder part, and an introduction to pop-ups and an advanced pop-ups. And then this is kind of bringing a few things together. The more, so I think if you do watch those other videos, then between this video and the other two, introduction to the layout builder and the theme builder, you'll have a good picture of how the Elementor universe works.
And Matt Wood is letting us know that figuring out where all of the custom post types live is probably one of the hardest parts that he's found. And Steve says that he's transferred 2 huge transfers to Elementor, and everything we've mentioned was most definitely necessary. So thank you for that feedback. And also a reminder, you can save the chat by clicking the 3 dots at the bottom of your screen next to the file icon. So thanks for reminding us of that, Steve.
Yeah, that I cannot underestimate that pink spreadsheet portion of the process is probably the most critical part of the process, is just getting your handle on where all this content is coming from. And you might kind of come in, there might be a budget consideration, could be you find, wow, I've really got to recreate a bunch of stuff. And that's going to be 10 or 20 hours in its own right. I did a big site for an organic food, very big organic foods company, and they had like this whole custom products template and a custom recipe template, and that was kind of huge to recreate those templates with those custom fields, and because they had such crazy fancy functionality with them. It wasn't just the look, it was like when you hover it does this thing, and or you click and it's got this tabbed thing happening, and it really took all of my brain power and skill to make that transition. So some of those sites aren't going to be as easy to move over as others.
And sometimes you might actually be pleasantly surprised, because maybe when you do the audit, you realize it's not as daunting as you thought it would be, or you can strategize. Like I had a client recently where we had used a previous page builder, and they had their own plugin called Portfolio. Well, I thought I was going to have to recreate all those, but then I think it was Angela just reminded me that I could just convert them all to a custom post type using the custom post type UI plugin.
Yeah, and then they're just still there, and everything's fine. So well, cool. Happy Tuesday, and I hope you're all doing well, and we'll see you next month, and thanks for being here.
Yeah.
If you want to put your video on, we could all wave.
Yeah, we could take a
screenshot
picture of everybody waving
if you want.
So yeah, everybody that wants to turn on their video, we'll wait for everybody to turn it on, and then we'll say,
hi. Okay, ready, set. Okay, everybody
Start
waving. I think I got some screenshots. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
You guys are awesome.
It was great to have everybody here. If anybody has some questions, thanks, Steve. If anybody has any questions, we're here for a few more minutes, so stay on and let us know what you have.
I'm gonna sit down now.
Yeah, I sat down halfway through.
Like I'm ready to sit.
Sorry, I should have told you.
I don't have my balance board at the office right now, so.
Okay.
Yeah.